Memo to myself, never, ever do the treadmill right after lunch. Welcome to the Time Treadmill. I'm Ron, and these are my sweaty but slightly nauseous thoughts about Doctor Who. The Ark in Space amazingly succeeds at pointing to the future of Doctor Who by pointing to its past. Case in point, first of all, the title itself is actually a reference to the first Doctor story, The Ark. This is another story set against the great human diaspora. And there will be several more of these stories in the future. Stories like Smile and The Beast Below and others like it. It's a specific moment in human evolution that the show returns to again and again, with the Earth destroyed by solar flares and humanity journeying forth in Ark ships to populate somewhere else in the universe. And not only is the plot of this story a callback to that, but the structure of the story, having the Doctor traveling with multiple companions again for the first time since the Second Doctor era, absolutely sets this of a piece with classic First and Second Doctor era stories. The previous story, Robot, was the last hurrah for UNIT, and there will be a few more UNIT stories, but never like there were during the Third Doctor era. With this story, Robert Holmes and Philip Hinchcliffe are very much putting a stake in the ground and saying, this is something new and different than the Third Doctor. But to the ends of pointing to the future, they're doing so by providing enough references to the past for it to be comfortable, while offsetting it with new things that are very, very different and unique. Tom Baker's Fourth Doctor is different than any others that ever came before it or will ever come after. Tom Baker stands as a giant in the role, the Doctor that all other Doctors are compared to, and there's a good reason for that. But beyond that, this story, The Ark in Space, is where Holmes and Hinchcliffe begin to steer the series directly into gothic horror territory. Yes, this is a science fiction Ark story, but at its crux, it is absolutely a body horror story, with humanity violated by the alien Wirrn, giant insectoids that burrowed their way into the Nerva beacon and then consumed a hibernating human victim before themselves hibernating. Here, thousands of years later, as humanity is awakening, so at the same time, the insects, the Wirrn, are awakening and consuming humans, and one of them takes over the commander of the ship. And there's a whole story arc through the second half with the commander, Noah, slowly transforming into an insect, first with his hand and then half his body, and eventually entirely consumed by this insect species. And yet, in the end, it's Noah that reaffirms humanity's strength by leading the Wirrn away so that they can be destroyed. There's just so many layers to this story, and it's such a perfect encapsulation of what makes classic Doctor Who so good. This right here, this is the turning point. This is the linchpin of when classic Doctor Who became the show that I remember growing up, that means so much to me as a child and in my memories as an adult. I love this story. I highly recommend it. You should definitely check it out. This is one of the all-time greats. Now, interestingly, this season is also a great example of how much can be accomplished by planning and design. The structure of the stories in this season were very much designed to use the same sets over and over again. And so the entire setting of this story on Nerva Beacon for the Ark in Space gets reused again at the end of the season in Revenge of the Cybermen. Same location, different era, but same sets. And by design, Ark in Space is an entirely inside set filmed story, whereas the next story, the Sontaran Experiment, is an entirely outdoor filmed show. They were able to bifurcate the crews and shoot one way for one story and another for the other, and really turn in an amazing show on budget and on time. On time being a little bit of a wiggly term in this case because of some production overruns that happen in the Ark in Space. But regardless, this is a golden example of how to produce a science fiction television show in the 1970s. This is just so brilliant. I love it so much. And on that note, I am still a wee bit nauseous, so I'm going to call it a day. I'm going to go get cleaned up and lay down for a minute. But I'll be back tomorrow with the Sontaran Experiment. I hope I'll see you then.